Today we're joined by Charlitta Hatch, who goes by Charlitta from Charlotte, a proud graduate of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, mother, technology executive, and advocate who is running to represent District 1 on the CMS Board of Education. With more than 20 years of experience leading large, complex technology and data transformation initiatives in the private sector, Charlitta now serves as the inaugural Chief Data and Analytics Officer for the City of Charlotte, bringing innovation, heart, and results to public service. She is also a children's book author, adjunct professor, and scholar whose doctoral work in urban education amplifies the voices of Black mothers and centers family engagement and school success. Charlitta's journey from walking CMS school halls as a student to navigating them as a mom, advocate, and leader gives her a deeply personal understanding of the challenges, promise, in our public schools. Her leadership is grounded in connection, data-driven vision, and the belief that every family deserves a true seat at the table. Charlitta, welcome to Voices of Resilience.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Hey, girl.
Hey. There's nothing more beautiful than bringing someone here who has taken on many tasks. But before we get into the good stuff, I want to run it back. I want to introduce you to Voices of Resilience, but I also want my followers to know who you are. Like, I mean, where you come from, what you trying to do.
So I'm Chatty Charlitta from Charlotte. And so I'm born from here in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So I always say I'm not just from here, I'm for here. I met my husband in the 10th grade in high school here. Wow. We got engaged at Ridge Road. Oh, wow. And we have a third grader at Highland Creek. Yes, I was actually, have you ever heard of Empowerment? It was an organization that my high school friend founded to help girls find mentors in CMS, because that's one of the things that we realized we didn't have. Okay. And so we had a back to school summit every year, and we were bringing girls across the district together. And I was planning it that year. And I thought that when Mark proposed to me there, that he was showing all 250 young girls there that men like get on their knee and they propose, and like that was so powerful. Yeah. And he was like, "No, I just knew your friends would be there, and all I had to do was get your parents there." I was like, "Oh, I thought you had actually."
See, no. He was like, "Listen, I mean, this is going to be the easiest avenue."
Exactly. I thought it was so deep. I'm like, I can't believe he's proposing to me in front of these middle school and high school girls. And he was like, I didn't even think about that.
No, but you know what? That's beautiful because they're thinking about it. Yes. And he's an example of what they might want in their future.
That's what I was thinking. How powerful is two high school sweethearts coming together, getting, engaged there. So I'm married to my high school sweetheart.
That is rare.
Yes, we are. I mean, we did break up a lot, and I did change my number twice. And I always say he had a praying grandma, and that is how we somehow are here today.
Have a praying grandma.
Exactly. It was his grandma's prayers. But we have two little people. So we have an 8-year-old who's in the 3rd grade in CMS, and then we have a 4-year-old. Her name is Amelia Grace. And I like to say the grace part hasn't shown up yet. So we're waiting for a grace part to show up.
You got to put it up, just name it, and then later we can claim it.
Yes, we're speaking it into existence. We only been waiting 4 years, so we still, it's time. It'll come in time.
That is wonderful. So you've worn many hats, and I've seen you conquer all of them. Let's talk about some of those hats that you've worn. I mean, even from corporate to thinking about which I've had the beautiful opportunity of following you develop information, books to even cover your son and to cover that area. Can you take us through your journey?
Oh, absolutely. So 1st generation college student.
Hey.
Yes. Went to an HBCU, Hampton University. And one contrast that I like to kind of pull out is that was my first time being in a Black excellence environment. Mm-hmm. And I did not realize how conditioned we were growing up, that the, kind of Black is less than, and that you are an exceptional person. if you, were getting your good grades and being respectful and all of those things. But really, that's the norm.
Yeah.
And not seeing that being in like highly integrated schools, I had that condition. And so being at Hampton really gave me such a confidence of like who I was, and learning that, I would say when I was in high school, wasn't striving to be number one. I was striving to be the number one Black girl, which might have been number 20. But then when you get to Hampton and everybody's that way, you really push past, and you're just trying to be the best version of yourself without worrying about race. And so many people talk about, how you're not prepared for life in the HBCU. And I argue that because that allowed me to then graduate and go into a consultant. I started at IBM and then moved to Accenture and Slalom. And so I kind of built the first 20 years of my kind of business career helping companies transition on technology systems. And I give the example of, if you have an iPhone and you're moving to an Android, you want all of the stuff to show up on the phone at the exact same day and at the exact same time. But 100,000 people also have to do that and know how to use it. So I can help manage that change. But being in those spaces, even at in my first job, when I got there and I was working and trying to prove myself, and this guy pulled me to the side and said, "You don't act like your name." And I was just floored because I had never thought of my name as ghetto. And I'm named after my grandfather, Charles. So it just never even connected. And I remember at that moment going to the bathroom, calling my mom, and feeling like a sellout because I didn't know how to respond and I didn't know what to do. But being in that space and that kind of core moment allowed me going forward to find my voice and not just find my voice, but to help other Black women specifically find their voice too. And so I've always considered myself an amplifier, whether it's been through blogging back in the day before podcasting. And now I also have a podcast kind of centering the voices of Black mothers.
That's good.
But that has been those moments going from CMS to Hampton, and then from Hampton to my first job really, I think, allowed me to find my passion and my purpose, and how do you kind of intersect those things.
With all of those hats that you've worn, when did that aha moment appear to you to say, you know what, it's time for me to set some things aside and change?
So do you ever have somebody tell you that you'll know in due time, and that God will order your steps? And then my co-host of my podcast, she always says God is in the details.
Yes.
So now I look back and see all of the purpose steps that God has put in path. Not only being from here and navigating through the system, but also just having different experiences and careers, managing different types of people, managing internationally, managing complex projects, being a part of the Junior League of Charlotte and being the president of that organization during the pandemic and 6 days after George Floyd, and like what that experience looked like, being a children's book author, getting my doctorate, studying family engagement, and specifically why Black mothers are not putting their kids in CMS, being able to bring those voices to the table. So like all of these things, I believe, have allowed me, when you look at this time period in our country, they're all critical things that I uniquely bring to the school board. So I wouldn't just be my voice that I'm bringing to the school board, but it would be the voices of the 250 mothers that I've been talking to over the last 5 years preparing for my dissertation. I think it's amazing that I'm leading AI for the city of Charlotte at a time where we're trying to figure out how AI fits in with schools. And then being a crisis leader from the pandemic, leading at work and leading in the community. I think we're in pandemic type times now where people feel uncertain about things and they don't know how things are going to impact them day to day. And I keep saying that I believe that we need a solutions-oriented leader. And so you can have advocacy, and we need strong advocates, but you also need policy-making problem solvers at the table that's going to bring the community along the way. And I bring those three unique things in addition to other things that I think the board could really benefit right now.
Oh, Perfect. Said perfect. And since you're talking about technology, we live in a society now that is no longer reading. They are clicking and they're scrolling. What would be your recommendation to the board to assist in technology, moving it forward? What do you see as far as technology? AI is surpassing. I mean, it's growing faster and faster, and I think that even we're behind in some aspect. What skill level and knowledge can you bring to the board to help advance us?
So one of the things that I think is so key right now, especially when we're talking about students and teachers and just the schools overall, is kind of what I would call AI literacy and making sure that people understand what it is that we're talking about. And I think it's our responsibility as a district, as a school district, to make sure that the community understands. And when we understand and start to define ethics and responsibilities, because, parents will say, well, I don't want my kids to lose critical thinking skills. I'm like, every generation has had that. It used to be Spark Notes. Then it was the internet. Then we didn't have the encyclopedias. Then was the typewriter. And then, this is that generation's version of that. So now we should have learned from these other tech trends that people thought that we were going to lose critical thinking skills from and apply it here. And so if we keep our students from it instead of embracing it and doing it alongside them and teach them the ways to use it and the ways in which you can supplement but not replace, I think we will be further ahead versus taking these hard lines to say we're just not going to do it. Now, the one good thing is CMS is not doing that. They have 30 schools right now where they're piloting AI. I believe that when you think about AI and what's happening across the country right now, it's transforming business models. And so that allows you to think about how do you reimagine education and the way in which we work. And not to replace, because I think it's important to make sure people understand that it shouldn't replace, but it should allow us to do some things more efficiently so that we can spend the special time doing other things. So if we, for example, didn't have teachers having to do the administrative paperwork at the amount of time that they have to take, how much more time could they spend with our students on an individualized basis? Right? And how would that change the teacher experience?
And since you said it, let's go there. Because, the teachers are the center of everything that's going on with North Carolina. I remember when I was teaching, we had all of these incentives. I came in when they had the LEAP incentive, and it was like $20,000, to teach at a high needs school. And so that was big money to me. It gave me the flexibility to be with my children in the afternoon, and just, it was consistent. When we talk about technology and how that can make it easy for teachers, give me an idea.
I think about all of the paperwork that has to be filled out, all of the ways in which, you have to put in the grading and the worksheets and just the amount of time that teachers actually are not spending with students. And so to be able to look at kind of how the day is spent and what percentage of time is spent with students, what percentage of time outside of probably the clock is spent on kind of the paperwork. And what are ways in which we could still get that done, but use artificial intelligence to do that?
This is dope, especially for EC teachers. Highly qualified EC teachers do double the paperwork that a regular teacher would do because of the differentiation in the students and their IEPs and what they require. A lot of them are getting burnt. They're getting burned out. They're saying, you know what, I have the qualities, I have the skills, but I just don't want to deal with the paperwork. This is a great solution to that. I love ChatGPT. It's become my best friend. And I asked ChatGPT, I said, can you go ahead and do this, this, and this? And of course I'm going in and I'm prompting it and I'm looking at it and I'm making sure this original, but it's checking the boxes. That I would have had to go and do all these other things. And so we already know the curriculum is prepackaged. How we can make it better using AI is just incredible.
Another thing is you think about kind of using, if you go to the doctor now, they're using artificial intelligence to predict when you might, have a heart attack or a stroke,
Yes.
right? So if we take that parallel, I wonder how we could use artificial intelligence to predict what students might have chronic absenteeism, or which students might have different things going on at home where we might need to do some of those interventions so that we can get ahead of things and not be reactive to the data, but actually be proactive with that.
And one of the things that I love about artificial intelligence too is that you can teach it to be unbiased.
Yes.
So it's not just looking at a population of people and saying, well, they're going to have heart disease because they're Black. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
It's like, no, this is what's happening with this individual person. And this is what we can do to prevent that.
And the more we have people participate in the development of these tools, the testing of it, give people the example when you go wash your hands.
Right.
Well, that's artificial intelligence. Well, Black people, you're like, what is happening? It is not working.
Right.
Well, it's because it doesn't recognize our melanin. And so then you have to put your hand like this. And if you have a little bit more melanin, then it still doesn't work. But you're doing this because you think you don't know how to use it, but it's actually not recognizing your skin tone.
Wow.
So
I just learned something.
Yeah, we weren't at the table. Like, clock it.
Yes, I just learned something because I'm like, I've done that many of times.
Thinking you got something wrong.
Like, what's wrong with this thing here?
But people don't even realize that that's artificial intelligence because there's people are now talking about generative AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get on the elevator, it knows you there. A Black man created that. Alexander Miles created that in 1886. That is a form of artificial intelligence. So it's not new, but we have to participate. We can't be culturally like we always are. Oh, that's devil's work. We're not going to be playing with that. We're not doing that, because when we do that and we see us transforming everything, we need to be leading at a minimum a part of the transformation, and especially for our kids.
Yes.
And so if we are not at the cutting edge of making sure our kids understand how to code, understand how to use these technologies, because we don't want to believe it, we're just going to keep increasing this disparities amongst Black children anyway.
I think, yes. I think when we create a culture that makes it safe for us, because we've had it historically been used in testings that have not benefited us. It's worked against us. And it's kind of a thing. My husband always talks about how, because he used to work for this pharmaceutical company, how a lot of their trials did not cover enough of us because we were so afraid to get into the trial because we might get the one that doesn't work.
Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, this is good information. We need to be a part of it. We need to, and what I love that I heard from your platform, we need to create a seat at the table.
Yes.
I'm going to go into this next question. Your campaign emphasizes the importance of student identity, voice, and representation. What does it look like for students to be active partners in their own education, and how do we ensure their voices are reflected in CMS policies?
So I am a big person on who's going to be impacted by this decision the most, and how do we make sure their voice is at the table? And I believe that is for students as well. So one of the things that I am committing to doing is having a youth summit within the district, so that we can hear directly from students about their experiences and what they're looking for. We can also educate them on what the school board does for them and how to advocate for themselves, because a lot of students don't know how to advocate for themselves. One thing I'll share is I have my son go to mommy school over the summer, and then after school, we have stuff for him, and he hates mommy school. But I had to do a project this summer, and I told him to identify a problem that he saw within the school. And we started to work through every week, how would you solve that problem? So we researched, his was on school lunch. So we researched who makes up the menu. We had him call, some of our family members to ask them, like, what do you remember about school lunch? Did you like to eat it? All of those things.
Those cookies.
To come up with a recommendation on how it could improve.
Right.
And then he recorded a video on it. But he was going to the 3rd grade, and he had a great solution on school lunch, the portions of it, like the options, what it tastes like, and all of that. And I think sometimes we let age get in the way, but we have to remember that every great movement started with the youth.
That's right.
And so we come in and we thinking that they're too young, they don't have a voice. I do believe that just like with teachers, we need to have their voices at the tables. We need to have students' voices at the table, because when kids want to learn and they're excited about learning and they see themselves in the learning and in the curriculum and it's what they want to do, they will thrive. And the research shows that.
Oh, I love it. And it's so true. Okay, so District 1 is very personal for me. I am a parent in District 1, and I see growth. I see change. However, I also see that we have a long way to go. What do you think District 1 really needs?
Speaking of the growth, I think about how all of these areas in North Meck, North Charlotte, Huntersville, kind of Cornelius-Davidson, they're all booming.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the things that I think is needed is more of a strategic approach and lens in which we're talking about as a community with our city council and our county commissioners and the leaders in the community, so that we're planning together for that growth. Because we don't want to get to the point where we know that decisions we make now, we may not realize for 10 years. Right. And so we see if 157 people are moving to the Mecklenburg County every day, and then we see our area getting more and more congested.
Yes.
I think the first thing we need is a strategic kind of plan that accounts for schools and what that looks like. The second thing I would say is we need to have what I would call an equity audit, because we have a disparity in our schools in District 1. We have F schools, which, we shouldn't really have any F schools in the district. Why do we have F schools and why do we have A schools? What resources are at the A schools that's not at the F school? Right. What does that look like? And how do we make sure that we're deploying things not equally but equitably?
Right.
And so I think there has to be an equity audit that takes place so that we can close. I believe I read something that said it's a 40% gap between, the top and the lowest school. I mean, that's huge.
It's huge. It's almost half. That's big. So before we leave, I want you to take some time to tell the people in District 1, why should they vote for you?
First of all, I can't believe it's almost over. We've had such a great conversation. But, I had a great experience in CMS. I went to high school here, and I had guidance counselors that poured into me, that saw me, that still stick with me to this day. But I had a brother who also was navigating CMS. And my parents knew just what they knew at the time. We didn't understand magnet schools. We didn't understand school choice. We didn't understand all of those things. And they believed that wherever the schools that had a high concentration of white students was the better school for us. That was not the right option for my brother. He got held back in the 4th grade. He got held back in the 6th grade. He has ADHD. He was not diagnosed. And he did not have an advocate within the school. And so I can see in my own upbringing, 2 students in the same household had completely different experiences at CMS. And I know that still happens today. And so I could list out all of the qualifications and the skills that I bring. But what you won't be able to see is heart, and the heart that I have for this community, the heart that I have for children, and specifically Black boys, which is why my research centers on that, my children's book centers on that. And I do believe and know that if we can get Black boys thriving, thinking school is cool, and at the top, all children will benefit. And so my personal story is what I bring to the board, along with all of the other skills. But I think when you have heart in the way in which you're executing, and that way in which you're executing on decisions, you're going to do the right thing, and you're going to get exponential growth in those outcomes.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you being here.
Thank
it is
you.
An honor, and I look to see you on the board.
Awesome. Thank you so much.